if council, well, as all is aware, we sadly lost His Royal Highness Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, and our thoughts are with Her Majesty the Queen and the family. Before we start the meeting, I would like council to hold a minute silence in honour and on behalf of Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. So could we start the minute silence, please?
Thank you.
Make that 1 minute, council. Right. Item number 1, apologies for absence.
We have apologies from Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you. Item number 2, declarations of interest. Does anyone have a declaration of interest? No, thank you. Item number 3, public participation. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, public participation will be dealt with via the submission of comments or questions to the council prior to the meeting commencing. Anyone wishing to submit a comment or a question to the council must do so by 5 p.m. Tuesday, the 13th of April, 2021.
None have been received, Chair.
Thank you. Item number 4, to confirm the minutes of the last meeting. Members are asked to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 3rd of March 2021, pages 1 to 3.
Confirmed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Item number 5. Item number 5 is deferred. Councillor Kate Alton is not here. He hasn't attended.
Yeah, he sent his apologies. If you remember, it's to do with whether or not you still want to be members of MALC. And he was going to come and do a short presentation and answer any questions for you, but unfortunately he's ill and he can't make it. So it'll be deferred until the 5th of May, should you agree the municipal calendar report. And then it will actually fit in better, because then if you do decide that you want to join, you'll be able to send a representative.
Thank you. Item number 6, the municipal calendar. Members are asked to consider the report, pages 4 to 7.
Thank you, Chair. As you'll be aware, that there are several difficulties regarding the continuance of virtual meetings, which finish on the 7th of May. However, we can't do face-to-face ones really, because not everybody has had their jabs. It's not ideal. I've got, not enough room to put everybody in and socially distance. So actually this is the way forward, so that you would have your annual council early on the 5th of May. And then you would go and have your next council meeting on the 23rd of June, which will be in many ways specifically to agree your AGAR, which is your annual return that needs to go to the external auditor, and a few other bits and pieces. And then we go into the meeting cycle at the end of June, beginning of July. And that then fits in with the roadmap for coming out of lockdown. But I really need to get your agreement with it, and with that, with the municipal calendar moving forward to be agreed.
Angela.
Yeah.
The only thing is that the 5th of May, I mean, I don't know how the councillors feel, but the 5th of May is the night before obviously before the elections, and so there will be some councillors who are up for election or will wish to go out to, you know, canvass for those who are up for election. So I don't know if anyone sees that as a problem.
There's not an awful lot I can do about it, I'll be honest. I mean, normally we would be, you know, sort of avoiding the beginning of May, you know, because we're aware that, you know, the issues around being quorate and all that sort of thing. But there is literally nothing else I can do to hold an annual council within the timescales, or you meet face to face with the difficulties that that entails.
Yeah, and would that meeting be like normally the annual meeting is just, it can be over quickly, or we can have other things on the agenda? Is it just purely to nominate mayor and take in the committee meetings, and it is a simple kind of meeting?
None of our meetings are ever simple, Councillor Burns. I just want to point that one out. However, it is our more formal meeting in the sense of, yes, you would agree your committee membership, which obviously will change given, you know, we have personnel that, you know, that are more involved in Sefton in the forthcoming year, etc., etc. And yes, you know, we may have more borough councillors on our town council, and, you know, people might want to be out delivering leaflets. However, there is literally nothing I can do in order to maintain the legality of being able to do a virtual meeting and hold one later. There are elements around you want to agree your committees, you want to agree your new mayor, you want to do that. Because of the nature of the beast, there will be some other bits and pieces that are on there. As usual, the council meetings take as long as councillors wish them to take.
Right, okay. I mean, I obviously there's nothing else, that nothing can be done, so yeah, I agree, but I was just sort of...
Normally I would avoid it like the plague, as you know, because normally, in the nicest possible way, there's a fair few of you that I don't really see in April, generally speaking. But this year is different, and you know, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, okay, I'm fine by that. So are we just one in agreement?
I just need you to agree that that's the way forward in the municipal calendar for the rest of the year is agreed.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. So I agree.
I haven't got a problem with that.
Yeah, I'm getting nods. Yes, lovely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Item number 7, World War I project. Members are asked to consider the future home of the public art commissioned in 2018 and 19, pages 8 to 10.
Okay, everyone. I think it's probably best to hand over to Patrick in some respects. The report is there, which outlines the issues that are with the current home, more importantly with the panels. But I'm going to hand over to Patrick to explain it, I think.
Okay, Angela, thanks. Colleagues will be aware that this has been going on for some time now. When we first commissioned the piece of art, there were 3 elements to it. 1 was the statue, 2 was the 6 2 journeys through shell shock panels, and the 3rd part was to landscape it all so people could come and sit and reflect. So we, as you all know, we chose the site for Moss Side because obviously the hospital was there, and one of the key elements of the installation was to remember the sterling work that Moss Side Hospital did, treating victims of shell shock. That wasn't the only thing. There was also another objective of the installation, and that was to remember those people who were shot at dawn, who were accused of cowardice when many of them were kind of ill. So it wasn't a traditional war memorial as such. Rather, it was always intended to have an element of peace about it and remembrance of both Moss Side and the soldiers who were shot by their own side for cowardice when they were ill. So that's what we wanted to do, and everything went, you know, swimmingly well. And obviously with COVID, things have been delayed a bit. But what happened was we were kind of almost given the nod that we'd be able to install the panels where the wooden fence is, which is behind the actual, oh, thanks, Angela. Thanks, behind the statue. However, Merseyrail and Network Rail have come back and said they can't do this. Now, if you look at those panels, what Angela's kindly put up on the screen, you can see what we wanted to create was a stained glass effect. So you've got an outline, and this is all done in, I think it's 1/2" steel. And then there's stained glass effect. It'll look really impressive when it's finished. However, if we put this against the fence, because they won't let us move the fence, it'll look awful. So we had a meeting with Merseyrail and Mersey Travel and Network Rail, and it didn't go at all well. I mean, they were saying, well, you're not going to be able to take the fence down. You can't put the panels up the way we wanted to, the way we told them we wanted from the word go. And also, add an insult to injury, the bit of the installation we wanted to landscape, which is in front of the statue, so people could come and sit and reflect and look at it. They said we can't change that in terms of, there's really ugly bike racks there. They said you can't take the bike racks out, and there's a post, a lamp post. They said you can't take the lamp post. Frank Sharp asked the question, well, can we put decking down? And he said, no, you can't put decking down. You can't do anything that would disturb the actual the groundwork there. So what this means in effect, folks, is that out of the 3 elements of the installation, which were all supposed to be presented together when it was finished, we wouldn't be able to do 2 of the 3. And it would undervalue the whole kind of episode, really. So we would not achieve the objectives we set out to do. So what happened was we went away from the meeting, and the chap from Castle Foundry rang me, and he wasn't at all happy, and he said, look, I think you should move it, because what's going to happen is you're not going to get the overall effect. And I've sent 2 emails out to everyone to try and brief you on what's gone on this. These people were talking about, the artist, Andy, is like a world-renowned sculptor. And Chris from Castle Foundry does the Gormley statues. And I think they're actually doing the Princess Diana statue that's going into Kensington Palace. So these people are top flight professionals. We're lucky to have them. So they weren't happy. And to be honest with you, I wasn't happy. So I rang round a few people, and I said, look, if we kind of move this, have you got a problem with that? And every single person I spoke to said, well, if we've got to do it, we've got to do it. We wanted to put it there. We've tried to do what we said, but we can't leave it there anymore. So based upon discussions I had with quite a few people, I went off then, and I said to Chris, well, yeah, we're in broad agreement that we should look at moving it. So then they came and did a site visit on KGV, and they came up with Cynthia, the architect, has done the CGI, almost the images of what it would look like with the statue on the hillock and the panels leading up to it alongside of the path. So as soon as you're on that path, there will be a visual representation taking you towards the where the actual statue is, which will be landscaped with chairs, seats rather, so people can sit up there and reflect. So it will look spectacular when it's done, if it goes ahead there. As you can see there, it looks really, really impressive. And it will, in my view, it doesn't detract from the commemoration of Moss Side, because what we're doing is we're bringing it to the town, to the Civic Centre, and also it enables us to demonstrate the whole of the installation. And so we're not leaving what we had set out to do in Moss Side. What we've said we'll do is put something in its place to remember, which will be similar to, even we could, if we can get some funding together, we could ask Andy to do a kind of a cutout replica of the statue, and he's agreed, in principle, that would be possible. So we won't just leave it, we'll honour our obligation to put something there to remember Moss Side. But it's coming to the centre of the town, theoretically. And I think we've got no choice in this. I chased around and trying to organise everything to get people to Merseyrail, Network Rail, the artists, to try and get it moved. So we've brought it to the council tonight to basically, because if you got the drift of what I was, this money to do this, it hasn't cost the town council or the residents a penny. It came from Sedell 106 money. And basically what we wanted to do was we put it in McGull Town Council's account so we could develop a project like this. So it's a joint effort between Sedell, councillors at the time, I'm the only one left now, unfortunately, and the town council. And it's a marvellous piece of art, and we want to bring it to the town. So that's it. I don't think we've got any alternatives but to bring this here. I'm really, really, really annoyed with Network Rail and Merseyrail because they've reneged on everything they said they'd do, and they've left us high and dry, really. So I think I'm of the opinion we should move it. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
Councillor June Burns and then Councillor Ross Ferguson.
A few things, really. One of the things that it says was that, you know, the alternative was a new homes found for the panels and the statue stays where it is. I must say that those panels look impressive. And I think they, as an artwork, they stand alone. They look, you know, they could be the peace guard. They stand alone. They look absolutely marvellous. I'm against moving. I know you're saying it's, you know, now you're calling it a work of art. It's a war memorial for me. And I just feel awful about moving a war memorial. And when it was actually planned, it was never planned to be, you know, the three things together. It just expanded to that. And also it was precisioned so that it looked onto Moss Side wards. So that was the reason for placing it there in the first place. And so for me, I just feel as if we're moving a war memorial, and that just doesn't sit nice with me.
Shall I come back now or wait? Chair.
Yeah, I was trying to unmute myself. Come back if you want, Patrick, and then Councillor Ross Ferguson.
It's never been a war memorial. It's never been classed as a war memorial. Do you want? Shall I explain to you what happened?
Go on then.
It's never been a war memorial. It was always established to commemorate the work that Moss Side Hospital did, and it was to commemorate the soldiers shot at dawn. It's never been a war memorial.
But it's listed as a war memorial now.
Well, that may well be the case, but that was not of our doing. It was not designed as a war memorial. And when you say the panels, what happens was it naturally evolved that the idea was to have the statue and then the panels as the backdrop, which had always been in the offing from the beginning. I can remember discussing it. And then we came up with the idea of having this journey through shell shock, 2 journeys, 1, which kind of ends happily with, you know, being treated at Moss Side. And there's a panel that's showing a soldier coming home and his child running to greet him. And another one of the panels is a soldier being shot. So it's always been done to do it coterminously. There was phase 1. I mean, you can even look at the minutes of the meetings and it says phase 1, we're going to do this. Phase 2, we're going to do this. And phase 3, we're going to do this.
But for me, I mean, those panels, they do look marvellous, but they're the problem. So, you know, when you say we've got no choice, we can either choose to put them against the fencing here, which they won't, I know they won't impact because they're supposed to be seen on both sides, or we make a peace garden at KGV. But for me, it just doesn't sit right for me to be moving a war memorial, and it never gets touched. I go around there regularly. We placed a reef there for mental health. We placed a reef there, as you know, a couple of years ago. That reef's never been touched. That field over there is open to everybody with their graffiti, you know, we get ASB and all the things. In fact, you've listed the things, the they're against. And then the prayer was, we'll have a rose garden. And I just find it really difficult to be able to agree to move a war memorial. It's really,
It's not a
really
war
struck me.
memorial. It's not a war memorial.
Right, Councillor Ross Ferguson, and then myself, then Councillor John Sayers. Councillor Ross, you are on mute. Ross, you're still on mute.
How's
There
that?
we are. We're good.
Sorry. Yeah, I just want to nail my colours to the mast, really. Obviously, I think the panels look wonderful. They do. And I appreciate all the work that's gone in and, you know, the chasing people up and everything that's gone on by Councillor McKinley. I just personally feel uneasy with it moving from there because it was meant to commemorate Moss Side. And whether we intended or not, it is registered with the Imperial War Museum as a war memorial, and it's there with its coordinates where it is now, and all listing all the details of the memorial. Anyway, I have spoken to various people, and I think what I've said has been misconstrued a little bit. What I said was initially when I found out was that whilst I wasn't happy with it being moved, if we have no alternative, and that's an if we have no alternative, then I would be happy for it to go to KGV. But I do believe that we perhaps haven't exhausted every avenue and reached some sort of compromise with Merseyrail, Network Rail, etc. I just feel quite strongly about this, and whilst I do appreciate all the work that's been done, and I know Councillor McKinley's involvement, if it wasn't for him, it wouldn't be there, and I know that better than anyone. But I really do, like Councillor Burns, feel a bit uneasy about it being moved. And again, the pros that I can see, one of the reasons we chose by the station was the CCTV coverage that we get there. If we move it elsewhere, we're not going to have that. And I, like everyone else, knows the problems we've had with antisocial behaviour and vandalism in our parks. And I just think for now, at the very least, it's safe where it is. And that's all I need to say.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm just going to have a little say, and then Councillor Sayers after myself. So I'm just going to talk about the statue itself. I believe that the statue should not be moved. I know people will disagree with me, but I think it's a war memorial. As a town council, I don't think we have the right to move a war memorial. When I first was aware of this, I was shocked, and I think it's disgraceful, personally. As a town councillor, I don't want to be blamed for this, especially moving it to a place that suffers with antisocial behaviour, and we all know that as a council anyway. And as a councillor and a member of the local public, I won't be voting in favour of this. And I'd also like to know if everyone who's involved with building the statue has been consulted. Thank you.
Councillor Sayers was next.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I think we're splitting hairs really over war memorials and not war memorials, and I think the history as well was a bit sort of convoluted there, because I had an input into this when it was first mooted. Like June and a couple of other councillors, I laid a wreath at Sefton Parish Church, and I was very struck by the fact that most towns that you drive into have a cenotaph. And I remember speaking to Patrick and saying, Mughal hasn't got a cenotaph, and I wondered why. And we spoke about that, you know, it was obviously farms and probably there weren't that many soldiers. So we did a bit more digging, me and Patrick, and we went to have a look at the tide gate at St Andrews and the school. Now, we had like sort of 3 memorials. We've got the tide gate, which has got soldiers, and actually there's quite extensive amount of soldiers from Mughal and Lydiate on those plaques. It's not just 4 or 5, you know, farmers' lads. It's quite extensive, the amount of soldiers who perished in both World Wars and since. So for me, it was a war memorial. I wanted something more central. I have to say, when I spoke to the British Legion, and that's going to get demolished at some stage, they were very anti having anything at all, even at Moss Side, because they just wanted the plaques which were on the side of their building, which personally I didn't think they were sort of good enough for a town the size of that Maghull is now, when other towns have got cenotaphs and we haven't. In respect of moving a war memorial, Heighton Village, I was brought up in Heighton. Heighton's got a war memorial. It's quite magnificent. It's like an angel with wings holding up an arch. It's been moved 3 times in my lifetime in Heighton Village. It used to be in Derby Road. Then it moved to the back of the civic buildings, and now it's moved across the road. So there's no reason a war memorial can't be moved. I do accept Patrick's stance. I know Patrick wanted something to commemorate the soldiers shot at dawn, and the lack of moral fibre versus post-traumatic stress. And I know Ross and a couple of his friends obviously were very committed to the memorial for Moss Side. And for me, it was like 3 things coming together. It was, for me, a war memorial. I know for Patrick wanted the issues over the commemoration of the soldiers shot at dawn, and Ross wanted, and his friends wanted something to commemorate the hospital. And we encapsulated that in the one sort of statue. I never wanted it to go at the station. I went along with it, but I never ever wanted it at the station. My preference was Bobby's Wood initially, and we'd only just recaptured Bobby's Wood off Sefton Council. My second preference was KGV. To be honest, if it's a war memorial or whatever, it's quite disgraceful what's happening up at the railway station. You go up there and it hasn't been touched. Just reflecting on ASB, that was mentioned earlier on when we were talking about putting it somewhere. In my experience, and I'm touching wood, even in the roughest towns, I've never, apart from sort of riots and you get Antifa and all that nonsense, but I've never seen war memorials desecrated in any of the towns. Southport has a big ASB problem in its town centre, and they've got a war memorial. Most towns, you know, Heighton Village has got a war memorial in the centre of the village. Are we saying Maghull is less safe than Heighton Village?
Kirby's got one.
You know, Kirby's got one, and they're not desecrated. And even if they were, we got CCTV at the gym and on the car park. Are we going to let yobs tell us where our statues will and will not go? At the moment, and I've always felt this from day one, that statue is round by the bins. It's surrounded by a wooden fence that wouldn't grace my back garden. It's got a lamppost next to it, and it's got a bike rack in front of it. Now, if that's a war memorial, it's disgraceful what's happening there. And the fact that Network Rail won't let us do something with it, I think is also disgraceful. But we are where we are. When you look at the CGI images of it up on the hill, it looks quite magnificent. It looks magnificent. The football is massive for the town hall and for the gym when it reopens.
Yeah.
So it's not seen up at the station. Yeah. I mean, the last time I saw it was, I think I've seen it once since we installed it. Yeah. When I actually, because I don't use that station, I use the old station. So I've seen it once in 3 years. Whereas if it was at the gym, people see it all the time. They pass by. The traffic passing on Hall Lane, and there's old photographs of American troops marching along Liverpool Road, and the salute being taken from where the bus stop is now. The town has a history, you know, and let's not denigrate war memorials. You know, a rich man's war is a poor man's fight. The boys on that cenotaph are not millionaires. No. They are working class, ordinary boys who perished in World War, as did many civilians. So I would ask people to just reflect on what we're doing here. I don't want to sort of take sides, but war memorials get moved all the time. There's no issue with that. And where it is now, for me, is an utter disgrace. Thank you.
Councillor Ross Ferguson. Councillor Ross Ferguson, you still need to unmute yourself.
Keeps coming up. Yeah, I mean, you know, I know what Councillor Sayers is saying, and in an ideal world, that wouldn't have been my first choice for the memorial. I just was grateful that it was on the site of the hospital. That's my issue with it. I mean, we spoke about putting it by the grotto, which in itself, I won't go into that, but that's, you know, not going to be ideal. You know, it's to commemorate, initially, I know it's three things, but it's to commemorate the hospital. And yeah, that station position isn't ideal, but it is on the site of the hospital, and that's, you know, to me, it's a reason to leave it there, you know. That's it.
I've got Councillor Denise Mullen and then Councillor Chris Carlson.
Yeah, I'm just what Ross has said as well. It's like, no, not the ideal place, but I agree with June. If you're going to put it on to KGV, is it going to get vandalised? Is, like, you know, the Peace Garden, is that going to get vandalised? And if it is, then do we have to make another decision to say, right, okay, that's not working, do we move it again? You know, it's just, I just think we should leave it where it is and do them panels and put them in the garden. I think because that will, KGV, that will look really nice. But I just don't think we should keep moving it all the time. Well, not all the time, but I just don't think we should move it. Just leave it where it is. That's just my thing. So.
Thank you, Councillor Chris Carlson.
Everyone, listen, I've listened intensely to what people have been saying there. I think being in partnership with Network Rail, which is a terrible company, who treat the passengers atrociously. They're not a good company, and I don't think they've shown willing in any of the things that we wanted to achieve. Remember Pat speaking about this several years ago about putting the panels up and making it into it was meant to be to peace, nothing to do with war. It was meant to be a peace statue. So I wouldn't consider Merseyrail or Network Rail to have the best interest of that statue, considering what they're putting around it, and also their attitude towards it. To be good partners, I think we should move that, put it on KGV, put the panels up, make it look stunning, light it up overnight, and get the footfall of Mughal to actually view that on a daily basis. That's my opinion.
Councillor Ross Ferguson.
On mute.
Right, okay. I just wonder if Network Rail would be, you know, quite embarrassed by this whole situation, whereas a council is almost being pushed to move a war memorial, or a memorial, we'll not get into that, to move a memorial. I mean, it doesn't reflect good on them. Their attitude doesn't reflect good. And I understand where everyone's coming from regarding Network Rail. I mean, they were very keen to get it in there, and it was there when their new, not long after their new station had opened. But I don't understand their sudden backtracking on everything that they promised. And I think for them, if I was employed by them or I worked for them, I'd be quite embarrassed by this whole thing. Really embarrassed.
Would anyone else like to speak? Councillor June Burns.
Can I just, like, I'm going back to how I started really, but it says the option was considered and rejected. I don't know who rejected it. I'm assuming it was Patrick and a few other people. I'm not really sure. But can we not go back to that the panels go into the KGV and the statue remains where it is, and it's out of context to move it. It was put there for the purpose. That's why the committee was set up in the first place. The panels are wonderful. You know, I'm not taking anything away from the panels. They're wonderful. But they do, to me, those photographs, they stand alone. It's not removing anything from them, but it is removing a war memorial from, it's out of context what it was there for and its purpose. And for me, I think maybe maybe I've got too passionate about it. And I thought, why have I got so worked up about this? But if you think, I look on it as it's something for mental health. It's not just about shell shock then. It's about PTSD now as well. And people who are mentally ill, this statute it's like a catalyst of how people who are mentally ill get treated. Move them on because they don't look pretty and try and pretty them up and just get them somewhere else. And that's how mental health people get treated, the way the statute is getting treated. Just shove it somewhere else because it's a problem at the moment, because it doesn't look pretty enough without the panels. That's my say.
Thank you, Councillor. I've got Councillor Tom Hughes, and then I've got Councillor Yvonne Sayers.
No, sorry, Chair. I'm sorry. Can I just correct you there? Councillor Sharp indicated that he wanted to speak
Oh,
next.
I'm sorry. I didn't see that. I'm sorry.
And then it's Councillor Hughes, and then it's Councillor Sayers.
Sorry, Councillor Frank Sharp then.
Hi, well, I've been involved in this process right from the beginning, and it's a real conundrum. I'm torn both ways regarding this. I'd like to be definitive about one side or the other, but there's so many pros and cons. I mean, I understand that the statue, when we first started, was it wasn't a memorial, it was to do with peace, and there was 3 principles to it, as far as I was aware, right from the beginning. It was to celebrate the pioneering work that was quite unique in the history of Maghull. On the site of Maghull, it was one of the first hospitals to actually treat shell shock and turn around the terrible injustices of people being shot for cowardice when they'd actually won Victoria Crosses previously. So that was one. The second element was that it was to celebrate the pioneering continued work of PTSD, particularly at one of our biggest employers at Ashworth Hospital, Mersey Care, which is right next door to the site. And thirdly, it was a constant reminder when people were passed in this high footfall area of the station that to be compassionate to each other. We have a statue where someone's being supported, by another person, and it was a constant reminder of that in daily life, really. So there were the 3 things, and it was taken out of our hands in the fact that it was called a memorial. I've got no question regarding that. If they want to call it a memorial, that's great, in one way, but it was more to emphasize peace and the pioneering work that transpired from it. So that was one element. There were 3 components to this. There was one, there was the statue. 2, there was the backdrop, which was an educational component, and 3, there was a further educational component that we wanted the children from local schools to be involved in, the field trips. And we've been liaising with the history department of Days Lane for them to come along. Originally wanted virtual reality, which was too costly. And then eventually we decided that we'd have a cheaper option whereby in the statue there's a myriad of different triggers to different stories within the statue. For example, the whistle, the shell in the feet of the soldier, and what the shell represented, the different symbols on the uniforms. There's tons and tons of stories within the statue, which we wanted the children to come along and actually learn from. And I still want that to be a component, whether it stays or moves. Of course, it was the site of the hospital. We started with all sorts, right from the beginning. We tried, would it be good in the traffic island? No, that'd be too dangerous. Would it be better at the side of the roundabout? No, on the approach to what would be the biggest, one of the biggest entry points to Maghull because of the new housing estate. We thought that might have been a good option. We thought about what's called the grotto, which is the most beautiful part of Maghull that no one's ever seen. This beautiful pond, and would it complement that? But recently we've discovered that there's quite a lot of antisocial behaviour around there currently, and Persimmon haven't really been very good in terms of how they've looked after it, although it's still very much a building site, that area anyway. So it's unfair maybe to judge them too much at the moment. The other one was Bobby's Wood, and it was KGV, and there was also then Mersey Care came to the rail service came to the rescue, and but they were in agreement that they would actually honour all the components which simply they haven't, sadly. They've offered some solutions, but they don't really service all the needs that we would like. Part of me thinks that, do we give them a bit more time, or is that procrastination? Do we give them a month, to sort of consider any other options before we sort of bury the thought of actually proceeding and about keeping it there? So that was one idea I had. The suggestion when I first heard about this, when I was in the meeting more recently about the possibility of moving because of the artists and everyone in the meeting that was concerned about how it was going to be displayed, I do have an agreement with them. I think it's been ushered into a little corner there, a bit like Harry Potter under the staircase. And there's a bike rack there, there's posts in the way, and they're not willing to actually move any part of it at all. Every time we suggested something, it was a big no, and it's a real departure from how they started off. Even as Patrick suggested, I suggested about the Peace Garden, you can't do that because of all the utilities beneath the ground. How about a decking? Well, their response was, well, we'd have to have a 5-foot slope for a disability to get people onto it. Cynthia then suggested, Chris is the foundry manager's wife, who does lots of the design work, suggested, well, if you have the decking lower, you wouldn't need a long slope, and it was dismissed really completely out of hand. So I'm mystified by their approach, and I think really they're not thinking in the how that would impact. How might people consider this in the media or the community, or how would the chair of Merseyrail or Network Rail consider this? Would he consider it atrocious behaviour from his staff? Not thinking of the long game. So initially I thought, well, do we need to have a sort of a serious sort of letter of concern sent to Merseyrail or Merseyrail and review this in maybe 1 month's time, and if they don't get the appropriate response that's respectful to this monument, then we move on and consider the options about moving it. KGV, Patrick showed me the mound and how it would be levelled off, and it would look magnificent there. We did think about the panels being behind it, and how the light would shine upon the statue, and the safety factor would be resolved by having some V-profile fencing around the area as well, so the people doing the accesses at various times of the day. So there would be a safety component to it, and it would look incredibly beautiful in a very respectful area with all the components in place, and the children could come and do their field trips. So where does that leave us in terms of if we move it, and what do we leave behind? So I suggested to Patrick that maybe we could have a silhouette of the statue, and of course that's been checked out with the artist now, and that could be a realistic option. We could put the history on boards on the fencing panels. So that's why I'm torn. I can see the pros and cons on both sides, and I don't really know how we can take this forward. And part of me thinks if we do sort of have a month's abeyance on this, where we consult, and am I sort of thinking about, is it magical thinking about getting a sort of a white rabbit out of the hat somehow, or is it something that's not really going to be realistic in terms of moving on? So I'm sorry, I've not really, I don't think I've helped much, but I've probably summarised a lot of what's been said, but that's where I was right from the beginning. I'm a bit stuck, so I can't say one way or the other how we should approach it, but there's strengths still and weaknesses on both sides. Yeah, that's where I'm sorry. So for talking so long, but there's, as has been mentioned before, we don't want to be moving it over and over again for various reasons, and we need to be sure about what we're doing with this. And yeah, that's my feelings about it so far.
Thank you, Councillor. I've got Councillor Tom Hughes and then Councillor Yvonne Sayers. Thank you.
Yeah, quite simply, we 100% agree with Councillor June Byrne's point. I mean, it would be an absolute disgrace if a memorial was moved. A memorial being placed to commemorate Moss Side the only logical and appropriate place is for it to be on the former site of Moss Side. And we're also forgetting the fact that when people come off the train, it shows a piece of history about Maghull, about the history of Maghull, about a former place, a former hospital that was in Maghull. And I just think it'd be a shame if that was to move. And I think it'd just be the only appropriate place for that to be. So.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Yvonne Sayers. Councillor Yvonne, you need to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Okay, well, what I suggest is that we move for a deferment, because I agree with Frank. So I'd like to move for a deferment. Yeah.
It was a proposal for deferring it, yeah. Councillor Sharp. Do you want to defer it until the meeting on the 5th? Yeah. Or do you want to defer it until the meeting on the 23rd of June? Well, and what's your reason for deferral?
Maybe the 23rd, because it'll give people more reflection time.
So you're asking to defer so that people can have another think about it. Right.
Councillor Ross Ferguson. Councillor Ross, you need to unmute yourself. You've muted yourself again. Come on, Ross.
Ross, you're still on mute, mate.
That's it.
That's it. Leave it there.
Yeah, I totally agree with Councillor Sharp and Councillor Sayers. I think we do need to defer this, and I also think that we need to send a strong email to perhaps the chairman of Network Rail or Merseyrail and explain this completely, to ensure that he's 100% behind his staff in the decisions they've made not to cooperate with us. And I really do think we need some time on this. I don't think we should make a decision on it this evening, so I totally agree.
Councillor...
I've got Councillor Chris Carsman and then Councillor Patrick McKinley, if that's right.
Yeah, and then Councillor Tuther Burns. Yeah.
Thank you. Can we dig out what we actually said back in the day when we proposed this as a memorial to peace, a statue of peace? It was never intended to be a war memorial. And what was actually agreed by Merseyrail? Because I keep going back to it, but Merseyrail and Network Rail are absolutely terrible companies. They do not look after the staff. They do not look after the passengers. It wasn't long ago that Merseyrail staff were going on strike because they wanted to get rid of the guards on trains and put people's safety in jeopardy. That's the type of people we're dealing with here. So, you know, the way they're treating that statue, we're putting everything in front of it. They've got no respect for it, as far as I can see. I think we get a lot more footfall and people looking at it if it was outside the gym, outside where Patrick has proposed it to go. But what I'd like to do is go back to the minutes and look at what we agreed when this was first proposed, because it was only ever proposed as a statue for peace. It was never proposed as a war memorial, and the fact that the British government was shooting their own bloody soldiers because they were mentally ill, mentally disabled, is a travesty. And that's something that needs to be brought out. It certainly isn't being brought out as a war memorial. So anyway, I'd like for it to defer to June, but to come back with a report on the minutes on what we agreed 3 or 4 years ago, and to write to both Network Rail and Merseyrail and have their responses or lack of response ready for the meeting in June. Because I don't think they care one way or the other. That's me.
Thank you, Council. Councillor Patrick McKinley.
Yeah, just a couple of points. Regarding being passionate about this, I would kind of gently remind everybody that the kind of funding for this came from Sedell, and it was me who drove that. And talking about being passionate about it, I was actually involved in the design of some of the panels, so I've been intimately involved in this throughout the whole episode. And to me, and it is my view, and it's the view of the artists, that you cannot separate these two exhibits. They are two ends or two sides of the same coin. If you do that, well, it's a decision for the council. And in some respects, what's happened is Maghull Town Council, it's only an asset of Maghull Town Council because we, the councillors and Sedell, allowed it to migrate across to Maghull Town Council. And I'm beginning to wonder about the wisdom of that now, to be quite honest with you, because some of what you're saying, I don't know why you're saying it, seems a bit fundamentally flawed. And regarding Ross, the first person I rang after we decided to try and move the statue was Ross. And I said to Ross, will you have a problem if we move this statue? And I left that discussion with Ross. And he said to me, I can see where you're coming from. No, I understand what you mean and so on. So based upon that, talking to the people I thought I needed to talk to, I went ahead and spent an inordinate amount of time negotiating with Merseytravel, Merseyrail, Network Rail, which I'm no longer prepared to do. So somebody else is going to have to do it because I have come to the end of my tether with those people. They will not move. You will not get the installation the way you want. And regarding, well, we need to look at it, you know, where we go from here with it. But I picked up that Ross wasn't happy. So I rang him again and I said, Ross, I'm picking up that you're not happy about this. And he said, no, it's been misconstrued. I'm okay with the move. So I carried on. And then tonight I'm confronted with this. So it's not a war memorial. What John said was, you know, he wanted a war memorial. He wanted somebody with you know, somebody on a jap who's on somebody's neck kind of war memorial. And we had a debate over that, and we decided that it was going to be a memorial to peace. Now, people may interpret it and call it a war memorial because it's got a soldier on it. It is not a war memorial. And even if the War Commission decides to try and call it a war memorial, if you like, the intellectual copyright of that statue, the people who designed it, so it's their intellectual copyright. It's not the intellectual copyright of Maghull Town Council. It's the intellectual copyright of the people who designed it as a monument to peace, Moss Side, and those soldiers who were shot at dawn. It was never intended to be a war memorial. Obviously, you're at liberty to vote whichever way you want as a town council, but we'll wait and see what happens.
Or Councillor June Burns, then Councillor Denise Mullen, and then Councillor Ross Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. So can I then put the proposal forward that the statue remains and the panels go in KGV?
We currently have a proposal that the matter actually be deferred, so until the June meeting, with the minutes coming forward to show what was actually agreed. So you would need to decide that one first, and then if you wanted to put that one forward, Councillor Burns, that one would then come second.
Right, okay.
Councillor Denise Mullen.
Yeah, I think one thing that hasn't been discussed, Patrick, and things maybe something that we need to think about as well. How much is it going to cost to actually do this? How much is it going to cost to take it from there to the park and set all this up?
We've been given a cost of approximately £750 to move the statue from the train station to the mound.
Sorry, Angela. So it's £750 to move it. So what do we have to put in place to actually put the statue on? Because it's not just going to sit on a hill, is it?
No, you would need to put something underneath it. What those mounds are actually the spoil from digging out the swimming pool in the leisure centre. So you would need to make sure that it was actually solid that goes in there. Now, we haven't got a price for that. So within the report is literally the price of £750 to move the statue. The landscaping that you see that comes in around it on the artist's impression, I mean, literally the artist's impression of what it would look like if it was moved, we would be looking for an external bid to fund that rather than it coming out of council coffers.
Right. Okay. Just something for us to consider as well, I think.
I've got Councillor Ross Ferguson and then Councillor Ken Hughes. Ross, you're still on mute.
I think Councillor Ferguson's computer is somewhat behind his fervent pushing of the button.
Yeah. Is that okay? Anything?
Yeah, that's it.
That's fine.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to clarify something that Patrick said when he said he spoke to me, and yes, he did speak to me twice regarding this, and I did say that if it has to be moved, then it has to be moved. I said, but I'm not happy about it. Now you can read into that what you like, but the simple fact is, I am not happy with it moving. And I could never be happy with it moving. But if we've exhausted every avenue, then KGV would be an ideal spot for it. Now, what I've said is open to interpretation. And I don't really believe that the wheels were put in motion to move it on my say-so or my agreement. So I just wanted to clarify that point. But yes, Councillor McKinley did contact me regarding this, and I thank him for it as well.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ken Hughes.
Just looking to the future, if the statue does have to be moved, Patrick, I've got some huge stone blocks it could sit on if you want them. So there you go, the offer's there for you, Patrick.
We'll see what happens, Ken. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Great.
Chair, can we move?
Councillor Frank Sharp.
We're going round in circles here, Chair. There's a motion on the table. Can we move to the vote?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
There is that. I think Councillor Sayers meant that the motion now be put. That is a motion without debate, and therefore you go to the vote. Okay, it was seconded by Councillor Carlson.
Right. All those in favour?
Is this in favour of deferment?
This is in favour of deferment until the 23rd of June meeting, with a report coming back detailing within the minutes exactly what we've done to get to this point.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is your voting now, don't forget, rather than speaking. So all those in favour again, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got 8 in favour there. All those against? 1,
2.
1. Abstentions? Oh, that was a 2. Right. Okay, that motion is carried. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now, wasn't the other things to be put forward?
No, well, the idea of it is that the item is now deferred.
So it's till next meeting.
Yeah, Councillor Burns's motion to have leave the statue where it is and move the panels is now more appropriate at the June 23rd one, depending on the debate.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
What I have to say is that unfortunately Councillor Carragher can't take part in that on the 23rd of June either, because she came in late to this debate and therefore she is excluded from that part of it as well. Okay, and neither can Councillor Lloyd nor Councillor Doherty take part in it because they haven't heard this part of the debate. Okay.
Thank you. Right, so I can move on to item number 8. Item
number 8, yes.
Right.
Asset improvement plan.
Asset improvement plan. Members are asked to consider the improvements to the play areas proposed within the report, pages 11 to 23.
I'm going to hand over to Alex. This is Alex's baby.
Thank you, Ange. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors. Hope you're all well. Yeah, as the Chair's passed this report over to me, I just thought I'd go through it step by step and trying to be as thorough and detailed as I can for you, and to try and make it as simplistic as I can also, because I'm conscious that we as officers do throw a lot of numbers at you. So if we just take a page by page, councillors, that would be great. So at your 27th of January meeting of council, you were presented with a lot of information regarding the budget, a lot of information regarding our asset maintenance plan, and the resolutions that you arrived at with from that meeting, colleagues, was that you wanted to free up £100,000 of council's reserves with a view to having an ambitious asset improvement programme. Councillor Sales will probably be aware that he mentioned within that meeting that it was asset improvement as opposed to asset maintenance, because asset maintenance by its nature infers a degree of inertia, and obviously as an ambitious council we wanted to move forward. So we've come up with what we regard as an asset improvement plan. I must admit that the report is broken down into 3 distinct parts. So part 1 is around the £100,000 that you've made available to us for improving our parks and open spaces. The second part of the report is associated with asset maintenance or planned asset maintenance. They were the items which were previously reported to you within the asset maintenance plan. And the third part of the report is effectively unplanned asset maintenance. That is a pot of £12,000, which we use for our day-to-day maintenance of our council assets. So I'll go through the easier ones, which are parts B and C of the report, which you'll find on pages, bear with me, colleagues.
Pages 15 and 16.
Thank you, Ange, thank you. So pages 15, under point 4 is the planned asset maintenance. So at your meeting on the 27th of January, we as officers proposed a number of works that we wanted to take forward this year, and we have reviewed that list that we originally presented to you. As you can see on page 15, we as officers are now recommending 3 distinct pieces of work which will carry forward into this year. So there is a replacement to the air conditioning units within the town hall, demolition of the changing pavilion at Winnybrook playing field, and also the installation of an electricity meter and pump at Winnybrook playing field. The reason why we're recommending demolition of the pavilion, colleagues, is because of the condition that it's in. It is an eyesore, I think it's fair to say, but it is in an unsafe condition, and the building does need to be demolished. There is some electrical works that need to be done in addition to that demolition. So there is a need to stop up the electricity supply within the building, but also to help prevent flooding within Winnybrook playing field. There is a pump located on site, and if that pump is to continue in operation, it does need an electricity supply, and that's why we have officers have put forward the electricity meter going in there at a cost of £3,000. And obviously, we're also proposing the replacement of the air conditioning units at quite a considerable cost of £13,500 there or thereabouts. We're hoping that that work ties in with the electrical work that Ange is leading on for the electrical replacement within the town hall. So that's obviously one of the things that we're looking to resolve tonight, colleagues, if you are happy with that. The unplanned asset maintenance is a budget of £12,000, which you previously agreed under Department 2, which is something which I and the finance officer monitor throughout the course of the year. That budget is effectively a revenue budget and is used to maintain the town hall, maintain our assets. And my recommendation would be not to touch that. I think we need that money to obviously repair when things go wrong. So I'd be obliged if that stayed at £12,000 and was strictly a revenue budget as opposed to being used for any form of capital expenditure. Are colleagues happy with that so far in terms of how those 2 pots are being used? Everybody happy with that?
Yep.
Lovely. Okay, we'll go on to the utilisation of the £100,000 of reserves then, which I think is probably a little bit more contentious, but again, we'll go through it step by step. So what we as officers have done is contact one playground supplier in terms of doing a playground upgrade. what we've effectively got at page 14, colleagues, is two options for your consideration. The first option was to not replace 4 pieces of play equipment that were removed as per our ROSPA report last year. The supplier that we've contacted provided a cost of around £40,000 to replace those pieces of equipment that were taken out last year. So obviously, if you're minded not to replace those equipment, it gives you an additional 40k to play with. Options A and B are outlined at page 14, but in summary, if you do not replace the 4 pieces of equipment that have been taken out last year, we can free up, it'll give us 20 pieces of play equipment that could be installed across 6 sites. If you are minded to replace those pieces of play equipment that were removed, we'd have 8 pieces of play equipment, new pieces of play equipment that could go in at a cost across 5 sites. The costs are comparable, colleagues. So you've got £98,000 for option 1, option A, sorry, and £100,000 for option B. Within page, bear with me a sec, page 21 of your report back, colleagues, that is effectively a breakdown of all the pieces of play equipment which could be installed at each site, and that tallies up to £98,000, which is option A on your report. What I'm trying to emphasize here, colleagues, is although you have, and it's obviously very generous of you to free up that £100,000, £100,000 doesn't go very far in the grand scheme of things. The pieces of play equipment are quite costly to purchase in the first instance. Depending on what the play equipment is that you're installing, comes installation of the safety services for play, and there's obviously the installation costs that go with it. I have been mindful about what we actually need at each site, and I think that is reflective within Appendix 3 on page 21 about how those sites can be upgraded. You may ask the question why some parks aren't featured. So the likes of Dodds Park, for instance, Roundmead Park, we haven't included within the options to upgrade. The main reason for that is we are conscious as officers about the lay of the land there. Those sites are particularly prone to flooding. So obviously we can't have the blistering weather that we've had over the past couple of days. When those sites get flooded, they are impassable. And obviously, because we are on a limited budget here, I have been quite conscious to upgrade the areas where we can get onto. And of course, these are areas that do need an upgrade. Moorhay Park in particular is quite sparse at the minute. So I have tried to do my best, and I've tried to be quite fair about where I've suggested the play equipment needs to be installed. I think at this stage, colleagues, obviously it's for your consideration with regards to options A and B. I think moving forward, there is additional work for us as officers to do. I think this report is to sort of highlight the level of investment needed at each site. We'd certainly need to go out to other suppliers to get some indicative costs about what they would offer, see if they could offer any discounts, as what this supplier has done, in order to free up more funds. There's conversations to be had with Knowsley Council, who are obviously our partners in terms of our procurement under our service level agreement, albeit that we've got some issues with that at the moment. So there is some substantial piece of work to do, colleagues. I think at this stage, what I'm looking for you is obviously agreement with regards to that planned asset maintenance. Obviously, the agreement there not to tap into the £12,000, and specifically with regards to the £100,000, that you are happy with our proposals about what the level of investment at each site should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. I've got Councillor John Sayers, and then I've got Councillor Chris Carlson.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. It's a really good report. Alex, what's the situation in respect of disabled children and disabled DDA equipment, DDA compliant?
Okay, so all the pieces of equipment that we're looking at, councillors, are fully Equality Act compliant where we can. So we are putting more disabled swings in there. The disabled swings are slightly different insofar as they're not the flat swings or the cradle swings. They've got like a lie-back facility where disabled children can fit in there. All the roundabouts, for instance, are fully Equality Act compliant, so they are accessible for wheelchairs. Where we are putting benches in, for instance, if you are minded to throw benches in, we always look at the higher level benches that can be accessed for wheelchair kids. The multi-play units are Equality Act compliant to a degree, depending on the level of incline for the multi-play unit. So absolutely, where we are putting play equipment in, we are fully minded to be disability compliant.
Cheers, Alex. Councillor Chris Carlson.
Thank you, Chair. Alex, I think that's a really good report. It's very thorough, so thank you for that. I think I missed it, Al. I think you said it, but are these costs fully installed costs?
They are, councillor, yeah. They're the full installation cost. So that's installation with the safety surface as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Councillor Tutherburns indicated that she'd like to speak.
Yeah, I removed my hand. I was asking the same question as John about disability.
Right.
Is Councillor Sayers asking another question?
No, Chair. I was going to say if there's no one asking any further questions, I'd move option A.
I would second option A.
All those in favour?
Agreed.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think I've got 9 there. Councillor Desmond, did you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I think it's unanimous, that. I'm going to go with unanimous. If it isn't, somebody scream now.
Thank you, Councillor.
Can I just emphasise this will now go out for a full tender because of the amount that's required. We need to go out and do a full tender. The issues that Alex was referring to with Knowsley Procurement Service is the fact that the head of procurement is no longer at Knowsley, and he was the guy that we were dealing with about doing our procurement. So we just need to make sure that they're still on board with doing it all for us. But essentially, we've given us a spec which helps immeasurably in for us moving forward. So we'll start doing that, and you'll get told what happens in the next few council meetings. Councillor Sayers.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I did mean to mention, I'm looking for some guidance, really. Just to compliment the guys and girls who do the parks. Just recently, I've been stopped by a number of people who've commented on how well the parks are looking. I have to say, they do look magnificent, so it's great. But in talking to them about the staff, we have like ground maintenance operatives and gardeners, and we never know what to call them. And I was just wondering, and I mentioned it to Alex, but I'm not sure how to go about it, whether we could sort of rename the service like a park ranger service and title the staff as park rangers, because I think that the title of a park ranger is a lot different from a gardener, where we've actually got people who we know are quite skilled in horticulture and flora and fauna. But also, I don't wonder whether someone who's badged up as a park ranger is more approachable to members of the public, where they can seek guidance or help if they need it. Because obviously parks can be dangerous places as well as fun places. There would obviously be a slight costing which could be met as uniforms are replaced and changed. That staff are badged up as park rangers rather than gardeners or ground maintenance. I just wondered, to take this opportunity, what other members might think of that idea, and then I'd seek some guidance on whether do we need a motion on that or a paper or something.
Right, thank you, Councillor Sayers. I'd agree with that, Councillor Sayers. Councillor Claire Carragher.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if the group remember, a while back we had a questionnaire asking us about how we as a council could engage more with staff and what we think we should change. Now, obviously we've got COVID, so it's going to be difficult, But one of the points I brought up, and I'm hoping we can still go forward with this once we're allowed to meet, is can we have a day where we meet our staff who do the parks and gardens and get to know them and speak to them? It would be really nice if we could, once we're able to obviously social gather, maybe in 12 months' time, have a day where we get to meet them.
No problem with that. I was shaking my head before, but that was just they tend to be quite nervous around councillors. That's all I'm going to say. There's some of them have attended amenities committee meetings because we find that it's actually rather good for councillors to be able to have a conversation with our staff who are directly concerned with maintaining the parks. It's good both ways.
Yeah.
The staff themselves get to talk to each other, and those relationships are built up, and then the staff actually get to hear how much you value them firsthand, and that is always a good thing, because generally speaking, when I've gone back to them after they've attended amenities committee meetings and I said, how did you find it, the usual answer is, well, we were a bit nervous at first, but we got into it, and they didn't have a good time, but in the sense of, you know, they got something valuable out of attending and taking part for them in a decision-making process that actually they are a little bit remote from. And that is always to be encouraged. Whether or not you want to say, okay, then we can arrange councillor visits, and maybe you go out to a park with them and you see what they do and you chat to them rather than spend an entire day with them. I think that may be a little bit full on for them, but certainly we can say, right, okay, then if there's a particular park that you're interested in, we will arrange for when they're going, because Al does the rota each week. If you're bearing in mind that, you know, they start at 8 and they finish at 4, you do need to need to be available, say, in the afternoons to be able to do this. But we have no problem setting that up. I think it would be good for the councillors to be able to get firsthand what it's like and what it's like working for the council. You know, there's no problem with that either. And then those sort of possibly the invisible barriers that are there to feeling part of a team are removed as well. We can set that up. That isn't a problem at all. And it might be quite nice in the summer to do a little, you know, just troll around a few of the parks and see what they're doing and what they get out of it. Because
maybe do it by ward, you know, maybe if the councillors did it by ward.
Yeah, there are parks in each ward, so that in itself isn't, although we may all just be studying Bobby's Wood in South.
Yeah.
But the whole thing about it is actually quite a good thing for them to learn how to interact. The park ranger thing, there is an element maybe of enforcement in there. It certainly gives an opportunity in some ways to upskill the workforce, whether that there would be, you know, sort of a nominal cost in it. But what we would need to do is just go back to HR at Sefton, who are our HR specialists, and say, if we were going to do this and maybe tinker about with the job description, would that have an impact on their grading, and then come back to you with it. But certainly with regards to, they don't have uniforms that say grounds maintenance operatives on them. They have uniforms that say Maghull Town Council. So if we were to rebrand them as park rangers, essentially it's getting the top coats marked park rangers rather than a whole new uniform, albeit we tend to get them uniform or new uniform pretty regularly because they are quite hard wearing on it, you know, what they go out and do. So yeah, no problem with that either. I don't know. Sorry, I think I've spoken for Alex there in a lot of that, but I don't know if he has anything to add, but yeah. Right, okay. Councillor Sayers.
Yeah, Councillor Sayers.
Yeah, just to ask the question then, Angela. I mean, I wasn't envisaging, you know, changing their terms and conditions or them having to do enforcement. It's more really about what, like Claire said about, we don't meet them. Well, I meet them quite often. I've often approached them, but I notice other members of the public don't. You know, they're almost become invisible to them because they're cutting grass or they're gardeners. Whereas I think with park rangers, there's more. So I would like to see some upskilling of them, but more in relation to, rather than enforcement, but like, you know, advisory to people about what plants are which, what we're doing about trees, you know, the bird boxes, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a form of job enrichment as well. But I realise you'd need to speak to HR. So what would be the process? Would we do a motion here, or would you come back with a paper and then we'll discuss it then?
Yeah, it's a bit tangential to the issue that we were discussing about the asset improvement plan. I think we can probably link it to, if we're going to, sort of do an asset improvement plan, then we look at our staff as assets as well and link it into that and say, well, if we're going to improve the physical assets of the parks with play equipment, then we could improve our assets with regard to our human resources to move forward with it. I'm always slightly nervous about going slightly off piste, really, when it comes to a decision that it wasn't clear from the agenda we were going to make. But certainly we can go forward and we can come back with recommendations. Now, do you want it to come back to full council, or do you want it to come back to amenities committee about training them and upskilling them on what the park rangers elements would be? If there was to be a change in grading following this, because of what, it's unlikely, but if there was, I would need to bring that to full council because it would have an impact on your budgets rather than just referring it to personnel committee.
I would suggest amenities in the first instance, just to assist the officers and assist Alex and yourself, to bring it through the mechanics of the council. And then obviously to full council if necessary,
Yeah, okay then. Well, we'll do that then. Okay, and we'll have a report ready. Bearing in mind that you won't have an amenities until the back end of June, beginning of July. But that does in fact give us time to work out, the full programme.
Alex, did you want to speak?
It was just something very, very quickly, Chair. It was just picking up on Councillor Sayers' point there about how the lads do engage with the community and residents. I think now that we've got some nice projects like the Bird Box project and the tree planting project, we've seen a noticeable increase in the amount of engagement that the residents and visitors, of course, are doing with the grounds maintenance team, just to find out what's going on, what's this all about. And, we have got a cohort of people, the regulars, we call them, that are, I wouldn't say friends of, because it hasn't been formalised, but certainly frequent users at the park that do see the lads and do engage with them. And, it can be anything from grounds maintenance to what's happening within the council itself. So we are always trying to come up with novel ways of doing more engagement, but I'd just like to put it out there that we have seen a noticeable increase since we've been doing all this work within the parks and improving the parks, that there has been a greater level of engagement with the lads and indeed myself. Good and bad.
Thank you. So would we like to put something forward?
And I think it was, and I'm sure Councillor Sayers will forgive me and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but is that a report will go to the next amenities committee meeting regarding the renaming of the grounds maintenance team to be park rangers, the impact that will have, and how we will then upskill, bearing in mind their new designation. And also Councillor Carragher did put forward a proposal for doing ward visits within the parks as well.
Right. Firstly, can I just bring in Councillor Frank Sharp? Sorry, he's got his hands up, waiting patiently.
It's only a small point, and I'm sure this will be covered anyway, but if it was me and my job title is going to be changed, I'd want some reassurance. So I'm sure Angela and Alex would obviously do a great job of doing that anyway, but I just wanted to put that out there, it's not a negative thing,
Normally what we do is that we go in and we have sort of like during a team meeting with the grounds maintenance team, as we try and keep them informed about what's happening generally within the council, certainly when I go in. So because I try and bob in as much as I can, because it gives them an opportunity then to ask what's happening and sort of get it from the horse's mouth, as it were. So to go in and reassure them. So, for example, when we were talking about budget setting, etc., I visited more frequently to give them reassurance about what was happening about the budget setting process. But certainly we'll be going in and we'll be talking to them about this and about what it's going to mean. If anything is going to change substantially, then obviously we consult with unions as well. Is that it? Are you happy with those two proposals? Would you like to would you like to say if they're okay or not? All those in favour?
Yeah. All those in favour?
Right. I think that's unanimous. Lovely. I can't see Claire, so I'm going to have to assume that since it was her proposal, she is for it. Okay, lovely.
Right. Thank you. Item number 9, activity room improvements. Members are asked to improve the proposed changes to the activity room in principle and whether to submit a bid for external funding for improvements. Pages 24 to 31.
Thanks, Chair. Good evening, councillors. Hope you're all okay. What we were doing with the report on the activities room is to look what possible uses we could have for it once the vaccination centre departs.
I'm struggling to hear you, Phil. Sorry.
Sorry.
Could you get just a bit closer to the microphone in your laptop?
Is that better?
A bit better, yeah.
Okay, so what we were looking at is the uses that could be made of the community room once the vaccination centre rolls out of town, and the proposed date for that is the end of September. We're looking to try and do this by attracting external funding, which obviously means we've got to go to funders, and the one we've been focused on initially is the Veolia Land Trust. The activity room at the moment is obviously occupied by the NHS. Prior to that, it had been used by 4 or 5 different groups of an evening during the week, and we were getting very irregular bookings for daytime meetings and events. But the ones we've had running were Tai Chi, Zumba, St John's Ambulance, and seasonally the indoor bowls, which obviously hasn't been able to run this year. I put the figures down for what they raise, but when we did the community survey, which I've sent out as an appendix, the interesting thing for me was that very few people knew what those activities were. That says something about the publicity of them. It also says that there's not many people engaged with those actual activities. So whatever happens, we'd have to make a better fist of trying to promote what's going on in the room. When we've done the survey, the top 3 responses for using it was to continue the use of the room for community groups, to encourage well-being classes, and to establish some sort of basis for training and education within there. Angela's fears of people running forward and demanding a creche were not founded. That came way down the list. But the principles were there for the type of things that we were thinking about. The community groups we've got, we don't know whether they're going to come back or not when the crisis is over. So we're starting to put out contacts to them now to see if the intention is that they will come back. But if they don't, then obviously we're going to have to be looking to encourage other groups to come forward. But part of the problem is actually with the physical layout of the room, as it's being one big room. We've had a series of complaints about the acoustics. We can only get one group in there at a time. Access to the stillage area causes some issues if the venue licensee has to walk through while there's a Zumba class going on, that type of thing. It's not too good. So we looked at potentially the layout, changing the layout of the room and making it sort of multifunctional. Angela, could you share screen for me and I can put the plan up?
Yes. Have you, tell you what, I will make you the host. That may be the easiest.
Oh, here we go. Oh, can everyone see that?
Hang on, and yeah, there you go. Phil, you're now the host, so you should be able to share your screen.
Okay. Can everyone see that?
No.
No. Always does this, Angela. It's not playing.
Right. Okay. You've sent it over to me, haven't you?
Yeah. Do you want to pop it up?
Yeah. You'll have to make me the host again. Hang on a minute. I think I can. I think I can snatch it back.
You got it.
No, it's just allowing me to I think you have to make me the host again. So let me just find it on the I'm not the host yet.
It's not letting me do anything to it, Angela.
Hang on a minute. I shall come and visit you in the next room.
Can I just put my 2 pence worth in here, just while we're waiting for the screen share, please, Phil? Just a thought, right? I don't know whether you approach the meadows. I can't remember how high the ceiling is. Could we use it for badminton and table tennis and stuff like that?
It's too low, Chris. That's half the problem.
Yeah. Okay, good. No problem. I just thought I'd throw that in.
Why is it doing this?
Phil, it's just occurred to me on the this green. I've got a green thing at the bottom of my screen to share the screen. Is that always there?
Yeah, it is. If you move your cursor over it, Jonathan. Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to have to go. There's a little game of footy on there.
Okay, Chris.
All right. Take care, everyone. Nice to see you all. Yeah. Yeah.
I think the host might have deferred to Josh.
No, it's all right. No, there's a reason for that. We need to make you not the host. Why is it just doing? There is an element of. Do you want to say about the discussions we've been having while?
Yeah. While we're trying to get the plan up for you, we have had discussions with a new charity, which is the Roy Evans Foundation, who's the ex-manager of Liverpool, and they're looking specifically to work in the Maghull area with kids who are in danger of dropping out the education system. They're very keen on using the town hall, the activity room, as a base. And they visited yesterday, Roy Evans and the chief executive, Cheryl Dooley. Whilst they're in the process of getting the charity up and running, they're reaching out to contact schools, and the activities they're going to offer, which include sports, creative arts, and well-being, are all going to be offered for free. So it looks like with them, sorry, I'm being distracted by Angela. It looks like we will get some immediate support from a charity who could bring in resources to run a whole range of activities based from the room, as well as incorporating the existing groups that we've got. It's not playing, is it?
It's not playing. It's not.
Can I just say, Phil, while we're waiting for this, I think, to be honest with you, joining with the Roy Evans Foundation, it's a no-brainer, really. We need something like this in the community. We really do need to be doing stuff. Obviously, the sport and art and the well-being is a big thing, especially coming out of lockdown. We're going to have a lot of kids with a lot of issues, and we can't even fathom what it's going to be. So anything that's going to help with the youth in this area, I welcome it. I don't know what anybody else's thoughts are, but my thoughts where the young people of this town are concerned. But I think, yeah, it's well done, Phil.
Yeah, the enthusiasm that they've showed was quite remarkable, really, when we met them the other day. However, they do admit they're actually in the beginning stages of the charity, but they do have considerable backers or well-known backers. Apart from Roy Evans, they've got Joe Royal, Kevin Sheedy, Jamie Redknapp, and they're looking to boost their. Oh, Angela's on now. Here we go. That is the plan of the proposed new room. If you can blow it up a bit, you'll be able to. Let me blow it up. Angela, can you make that bigger, please?
I'm trying. Nice.
It's a little percentage sign.
There we go. It's a bit better. I think people can see that around the pictures. So if you can picture the town hall as a plan, and on the top left corner is the entrance to the town hall, and then you would walk in through the foyer and currently walk through what is now on this plan, the cleaning store. What he's done, we're proposing with this idea, is to run a new corridor from where the disabled toilet is now straight through. So there'd be a corridor that you could access all the different rooms off. And the main point is that there'd be one big activity room, but we'll be able to use dividers to make the room into two as and when needed. We're also proposing that the final part of the room becomes the permanent home for the park rangers, as you're now calling them, because at the moment they don't have a permanent base. It also allows for whoever's operating the bar upstairs to come into the stillage room without disrupting any activities that are taken in the main room. We need to kit the room out, which Roy Evans have said, yes, we're very keen to help us do that, but we also need to look for other external sources of funding to do that, to improve the IT and allow for proper training facilities and storage facilities to be put in there. They are talking about potentially putting in a music studio where the store cupboard is. But that's dependent on whether it would work in terms of the logistics of the building and whether we can achieve the space and the sound acoustics. One of the key things we've had in feedback from the survey is that people saying that the acoustics in the room are a bit of a problem. So he's built in a lot of insulation and a lot of sound insulation between the room and the venue, because I think we've all experienced when there's been the Zumba class, particularly downstairs, it bounces straight through into the venue. So we'd be looking to try and quieten that down as much as possible. We're not going to lose the accessible WC. We're going to move that to where the storage cupboard is now and still retain a small area. And we're just going to turn the plumbing around on the existing kitchen so that the sink and the pipework's all at the far end. We've drafted up a bid to go to Veolia, which the deadline is tomorrow. But obviously that's subject to your agreement. But the in principle is that this is the plan we'd work from. Although it's only an in principle agreement, there are elements of it that we could still change if we decided to. And I know Angela's been talking to Tony, the licensee of the venue, about could there be a slightly better layout in the stillage room, and can he access it in one go rather than have to go outside to the CO2 store, etc. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions on the plan. I've literally had them for about a day and a half. So if you've got any questions, please fire away.
Can I just ask briefly, it's not a big deal, but you know where the accessible toilet is?
Yes.
You know where they've got the current issue, which has been an issue ever since I've been a councillor, where they've got the other door that opens into the toilet?
Yes.
Well, that issue gone.
It will be gone, yeah. We don't know why that door's there, to be honest, but it's actually serving a good purpose at the moment. But it will go, Jonathan, yeah.
Yeah, okay, great.
Is there anybody else? Because I can't see. I haven't got Potters.
I've only got 3 of us on screen, Angela, so I can.
Right, yes, but I'll stop sharing just so that we can go back to that.
Yeah, I've got a problem.
Right.
We've got Councillor Frank Sharp.
I'm sorry, Phil, I might have missed this, but who actually created the plans?
It's Keith Davidson Partnership. We asked them just to do an initial draft and some initial costings. So we had an idea of what we were looking at, what might be possible. But they say they're not set in stone from it. It's just an initial idea that we around.
And what did the Roy Evans charity want from us? You know, in terms of, I know it's
they essentially want a base, and to be honest, they will use the room if we allow them to, whether it's modernised or not. But it would be much better for them if they had 2 distinct spaces to work in. They can do breakouts then, and they can do different activities in each room. If we wanted to hire the room out, obviously we've got 2 different rooms to hire out. We've literally just started talking to the Roy Evans Foundation, but they're very much focused on McGull, which was nice to know.
So would this be a satellite for them? You know,
I think it might become the main base, Frank, from what they were saying.
All right.
They were speaking about working with children that are on the cusp of being excluded. They were also talking about encouraging young people to come in, working with them as part of paid youth workers. But then, so for example, assisting the older generation with some of the new technology, how to use your phone, how to use your tablet, and that sort of thing, and trying to get some dialogue in between the younger and older generations. They're very much concerned with having a venue.
Yeah, they're linked into UCLan, the University of Lancashire, and they're basing a lot of their model on work that's been done in Preston by a group called Creative Learning. And it's using it's getting very creative, the Danish teaching method to bring children in who are on the verge of falling out the education system and to avoid them being excluded permanently.
And to work with those, the needs, not in education,
employment or training.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic possibility, isn't it? Because we do have quite a lot of increasing antisocial behaviour over the recent years, and I've seen more and more kids, you know, dressed in black in the uniforms and on the bikes, and you wonder what's going to happen next. And then you see on social media, you know, that they always refer to them as rats and this, that, and the other, you know, for all sorts of reasons, for, you know, the outcome of the behaviour. One of the things I was thinking about, I mean, before I heard about this, obviously today, was that when I went for a COVID test, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, it was a fantastic sports facility up at Litherland or Netherton, and that obviously services, you know, our area, you know, because it's a part of Sefton. And I did wonder whether, you know, we could actually provide a service, you know, for the kids locally. You know, because, you know, I've been to Germany lots of times, and they have facilities all over the place for for everything. And the antisocial behaviours, you know, were very, very small compared to ours. And you know, you're into this argument all the time about, you know, they've got nothing to do kind of thing, you know, as opposed to upbringing and things like that. And so basically, I was thinking one of the options before this idea as well, but maybe it could be something in conjunction with it, is that we could provide some kind of transport facility to get them to these fantastic facilities in Netherton and Netherlands. You know, that's seems, you know, amazing. But again, this is going off track a little bit, but maybe something to consider once they've got the feet under the table.
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Claire Harrogate and then Councillor Ross Ferguson.
Yeah. What you're saying, Councillor Sharp, is a wonderful idea, but the problem is, you know, the funding for youth has been cut to zero. This government just cut the youth funding. There's nothing left, and I know the officers will say the same. We could say all this, but we need the actual funds in place to be able to pay for youth workers, to pay for the bus. It's things like insurance and that sort of thing to get the kids to this place. You know, it's now down to the likes of these sort of foundations to try and bring back in the youth, you know, get the youth under control in you know, a way of saying it, because there's just no funding. There's no youth clubs. Councillor Mullen, I'll tell you, she was a youth worker. There's no youth clubs. There's no youth officers. There's just literally nothing. It's like the kids don't exist anymore. And youth is something I am passionate about, and it's the reason why I became a councillor, because they've got no voice. No one listens to what they want, and there's no money for them. And I can't say that enough. You know, it's disgraceful the way they've been treated, and they are the future of this country. So I think bringing someone in like the Roy Evans Foundation is absolutely brilliant for us in McGull, and we should just welcome them with open arms. One of the things I was going to go on to say, one of their main aims, Phil, if I'm not correct, was trying to capture kids who were on the cusp of being exploited by criminal gangs and sexual activity and that sort of thing. So it's educating the children, you know, kids who are very, very vulnerable, who could be taken up by these gangs and, you know, get that label of being rats, when the only reason why they're doing it is because there's nothing for them to do. They're bored, they're fed up, and they've got no hope. You know, I just welcome these people to McGull, and whatever they need, I'm all for giving it to them, to be honest. And thanks, Phil, and Angela, for the work you've done with them.
Oh, it was all Phil, and you know, I just turned up and went, oh, that sounds lovely. It is absolutely all Phil, and it's all Phil's work really to get this off the ground and to give you a plan so you can see what it's going to be. The Roy Evans Foundation is keen, and it, you know, sort of about working with kids so that they don't get involved in county lines and all those sort of things that you know, and they've got sort of the backing to be able to do some quite established things through UCLAN and coming forward with that. I mean, you know, it's early stages, but it is looking very, very positive. you know, a reason to move forward with the external bid, if we can just bring it back to what the room changes could be. Obviously, if we decide to become a landlord for the Roy Evans Foundation, then, you know, there will be a report that comes to council to say this is what it's going to involve, and this is the amount of resources they can put to it and what they want from us, etc. So really what you're looking at is an external bid to fund the fundamental changes to the room that we believe it needs, backed up by the Survey Monkey that says, you know, nobody knew that it was there, and we need to do something with it. And this is part of it. We just haven't got the money to do it ourselves.
Definitely, whatever needs doing, that's what you're getting from me, whatever it takes. Thank you.
Thanks for that.
Thank you, Councillor. I've got Councillor Ross Ferguson, then Councillor Denise Mullen, and then Councillor Frank Sharp.
Ross is fighting his buttons again.
Right, is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a great idea. I think the involvement with the Roy Evans Foundation it makes it doubly so. I think, as Claire said, about opportunities for the youth is virtually nil. If we can do something in a little way to help these youngsters who are on the verge of going off the rails, then I think it's great. It's innovative, and I think you know, Mughal Town Council could be proud of being part of that trust, and even possibly the headquarters for it. That's all I wanted to say.
Thanks, Ross.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Denise Mullen.
Just going off the back of that, though, obviously, with Claire saying I was a youth worker, and I think I joined this council 6 years ago, and that was like sort of my fight at the beginning, because obviously all the youth had gone, there was no money, the kids had nowhere to go, and that's why I joined the council. And I think we sort of fought through it. We've tried to find rooms for them, everything's just backfired on us all the time, and I'm just so pleased, Phil, that you found somewhere that covers every aspect of what the kids are going through. Not only are the kids who are going to be maybe getting like jumping out of education because like they're in with bad crowds and stuff like that, we're going to be covering everything about youth, not just looking at one particular one. And we've got the rooms to do it now. The Youth Foundation, the Roy Evans, that's an amazing, because obviously they're going to be covering it as well. So if there's anything you want me to do to get involved, just please get me on board, because I'm just so passionate about all this kind of stuff.
Thanks for all your support, councillors. I think it's we will feed that back to the Roy Evans Foundation, because they're very keen to be working with the town council. The fundamental thing about this report, it's about the room. The Roy Evans Foundation will be a nice add-on, but we need to sort of make sure the facilities are there for them to use. And it does seem to be a bit of synchronicity here, is if the vaccination centre departs on time, it would seem like the prime moment to look at the room and to make the changes that are needed to encourage the likes of the Roy Evans Foundation to come in and work with us from the town hall.
Thank you, Phil. Councillor Frank Sharp, and then Councillor Sayers.
Well, huge thank you, Phil, for all that work and you know, attracting the foundation. I just wondered, you know, where you said they're a developing charity. Where are they currently up to?
They've basically started, they've got their backers and ambassadors, I've said, those celebrities, so they're going to use a lot of the social media platform to attract people. But I think they launched the website, which I will email you the address for tomorrow, but I think it's something like the RoyEvansFoundation.com. They've literally just launched that this week, and they've already got 135,000 followers. So it's on the back of that momentum that they'll be looking to approach funders. They've also got a lot of ins, because of the people they know, direct connections to certain funding organisations. So they'll be looking to use that to develop the systems that they want. They said to us that if you get the room sorted out, we'll definitely have a go at getting it kitted out for what is needed. And I don't think they were excluding what they want to do. If there's other groups in there and they can help them out, they're happy to reach out and help other, you know, voluntary organisations. So it's got bags of potential. Bags of potential.
It's Roy Evans Foundation.co.uk. It's just on it.
You got it, Jonathan. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just remind Council that we put our hands up? Councillor Sayers was next.
Sorry.
Thanks, Chair. Can I move that we move to the vote and accept the 3 recommendations of the report?
Yep, not a problem.
All those in favour? It's just hands went up like that.
Yeah, unanimous.
Okay, that's lovely. It's only one vote, Councillor Mullen. Only one vote. That was unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, we'll press go on the bid tomorrow then. That's it. We're ready. We're off. We're going.
Item number 10. Chair's closing comments. I've only got 2 things to say. Both of them are directed at Frank Sharp, basically. All I've had is compliments about Bobby's Wood, and it does look fantastic. I see you there every day. Like elbow grease, that's all it's about, is elbow grease. So well done. I hope the olive tree looks well as well. And thank you for planting it. And also to Ken and Tom Hughes, because I've seen they've gone down and helped out at Bobby's Wood as well. So thank you for that. And that's all, Council. Councillor Frank Sharp.
Yeah, thank you very much. It has been hard work, but there's been so many fantastic people that have worked alongside me, and but I'll hopefully when we get round to do something more official, I'll name names and spread the joy. But just one other thing, if there's any, I don't know if this will be finishing up soon. I just wanted to mention something that was mentioned by Chris at the end of last meeting about the pothole situation in the Gull, and I just wondered whether there was any updates from highways that I think a promised letter was going to be sent out, and I just wondered if there was any updates, whether that's a suitable time to bring that up now. I don't know.
Right, okay, what happened with that was that the letter has been composed and it has gone out to the borough councillors for their amendments, if necessary, comments and amendments, and when we get that back we'll send it off.
Thank you. Councillor Chris, I keep saying Chris, I'm so sorry. Councillor Claire Carragher.
That's okay, Chair, I've been called worse. I would just like to put out to the group, Councillor Sharp's had a lot of help with this from a lot of individuals who've volunteered the time and volunteered items like plants and sawdust and that sort of thing. And Councillor Sharp's asked if he could get these people a thank you present. Now, I don't want Councillor Sharp to be out of pocket, so I was just putting it out to councillors, if we've got no money in the council budget or we're not able to buy these people a thank you gift, would councillors be willing to put some money in, a couple of quid, to maybe buy these couple of people a little gift to say thank you for the help that they've done?
Now, obviously, that's not a council.
Yeah, Claire, we're open to doing that.
Yeah, if you want to organise that offline, then that's fine.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I just wanted to put it out to the councillors if they wanted to, chuck in some money to say buy them a thank you gift. That would be great. Thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you, Councillor. Well, that's me.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. I'm ending the live stream now. Okay.